going to go a little bit different as opposed to other weeks, whereas we're only going to focus on 2 matchups from the past week, as the rest of them really didn't matter about who got into the playoffs. Nobody really cares about who won between Westy and I, but it was me. Just saying, I won. So, moving on from that, we'll go ahead and we'll talk about the 4 teams that actually didn't make it into the playoffs. We'll look at their possible scorings that they can get for each week, and then we'll do comparisons. We'll compare 1 against 4, 2 against 3, and then finally, what the whole league has been waiting for, who will be crowned champion of our prestigious league. But first, let's look at one of the key matchups from this week that shaped the playoff. Jim and Juice, 114.4 versus Arby's, we have the meat, 70.7. Jeff, let's start by taking a look at your team first. All across the board, you had pretty mediocre performances. You had a good performance from Odell Beckham, got you 17.4, but you had a breakout performance by DJ Moore, who got you 28.4. Those 2 players right there were enough to propel you for the win this week and gave you the opportunity to make it into the playoffs by bringing you up to that 4th place position, that crazy tie position that we had between multiple teams. You needed some luck, but in the end you didn't get it, and we'll talk about that later. Now looking at Cam's team, you didn't really have much going on this week. You had a bad performance by Derek Carr against the Jets, which I didn't see. And this guy named Cortland Sutton, who got you 3.2 points. I mean, when you got a guy that's putting up those kind of numbers, that's not going to help your team any week. But now, let's really look at the reason why you lost. Check out this nightmare that you had to face. You were on bye week hell. Any other week, you might have been fine, and we might be having a different conversation about you being in the playoffs. But, as I said, as the whole league said, you got bit by the bye week monster, and that's what ended up costing you the game. Now, let's look at the other key matchup of the week that determined the final playoff spot. The Devlin Wears Prada, 152 versus Ice Ice AB, 73.6. Jordan, we're going to start by looking at your team first. You needed a win and some help to get you into that 4th spot to maybe squeak into the playoffs, but you couldn't do it against Jake this week. You had a good performance, you had an okay performance from Kimura, who got you 14.7, but then you had 28 points from Derrick Henry, which was your big scorer of the week. Normally with those 2 players combining numbers like that, that sets you up pretty well. But when the rest of your team doesn't even break 10 points on average, nobody else got higher than 6.8, yeah, you're going to be in for a rough week. And you did. And that score of 73.6 ain't going to do it, brother. Now, on to the team that made it into the final playoff spot. Jake, you had to win. And you had to outscore Jeff by at least 21 points. You did both. Your team put up a ridiculous 152 points. You had Leonard Fournette, who got you 32.4 points. You had Jarvis Landry, and suddenly that good-looking Browns offense got you 31.8. DeAndre Hopkins does what he does. Kittle does what he does. It's just, you had everything come together for you, and that's what got you the win. That got you the most points. That got you more points than Jeff, and that is why you are the number 4 seed in our playoffs this year. Now, before we go ahead and progress into making my predictions for the playoffs, I gotta remind you guys that I am the guru of making predictions. Not on my own fantasy team. That's a curse I have. I can't predict how well my team's gonna do. But I have seen and predicted the future 3 specific times. The first was talking about Cam going 1-2 over a 3-game stretch. Damn. Cam's really pissed about me ripping on him here. It's alright, let me just, Cam. It's okay, bud. You'll drop 3 and 4 and fall behind me in the standings. It'll be okay, I promise. You will go 1-2 over your next 3 games. The second was Cam falling in the final week of the season to not make the playoffs and face me in the losers bracket. Cam, No shots at anybody. I just report the rankings. You aren't going to win, Cam, so my dream of facing you in the loser's bracket will come true. And third, when I predicted and called my shot like Babe Ruth calling a home run, me beating the undefeated Sam, the juggernaut of our league. Sam, I've post-train gifts every week. My team crushes. Choo, choo. My bold prediction. I win this week and derail the Sam Train perfect season. Send. Now, before I go ahead and show you this Excel sheet, these charts and graphs and numbers that I've been working on for the last couple weeks, I wanted to kind of give you kind of a brief rundown of what's going to look like. It's going to look a little ridiculous. But essentially what I did is I took every player that was on your roster, made a few updates as a couple players were added and dropped this week, but I didn't get to everyone just because some of the points didn't change when I added those players in, and some of those players aren't going to be starting when it really matters. So I didn't account for every single drop, but I accounted for most. What I did is I took 15 players from each of your rosters. I excluded the defenses except when it was important, like looking at Jake's team when he has the New England Patriots, or looking at a team that didn't have 15 players that had multiple defenses, so I had to add a defense in to account for 15. So I took the 15 players from each of your team. What I did is I took that player each week, looked at each one of their matchups, based it off their averages that they've been getting throughout the week, based it off their latest performances, so whether they're streaking or whether they're cold, based it off the average scoring for the year, and then what I did is I added all those together for each week, so 13, 14, 15, 16, predicting each week's score, predicting each week's matchup, so each team's matchup for the playoffs, and then giving averages that each player are going to score throughout the entire playoffs, and then the average of your team, what they should be scoring throughout the entire playoffs. Now, you're going to see some crazy looking numbers, some high numbers. That's just because that is the possible total points that your team can score that week. That's not saying what you're going to score. That's saying that those are the projected points that are available on your team for that week. Now, I know there's a lot of crazy scenarios that go in, and projections in the end really don't mean anything, but it kind of gives you a general idea of which teams are going to be looking better and which teams might need some luck in order to come out with a win. Without further ado, we're going to start with our current league champion, number one overall, Sam Perry. Sam, here is your projections for the week. As you can see, I have you averaging 186.25 points a week. That means that's what's going to be on your team available based off of who you have on your roster now. You can go ahead, I'm going to send these in the link in the email to you guys, or I'm going to send it in the group chat to you, so that way you have time to actually thoroughly pick it apart and then mock me, belittle me for some of the projections that I made. I'm used to it. That's what I wouldn't expect anything less from you guys. Now, on to Mike's team. Mike, here is your team's projections for the playoffs. I have you tracking at 171 points that you'll be averaging for each week in the playoffs. You got a high week of 178 and a low week of 166. Again, everything can change. I'll give you time to look at it in the group chat. Again, so y'all can belittle me. Kevin, here is your team's projections for the playoffs. I have you averaging 187.25 points per week throughout the entire playoffs. Take a moment to look at everything before we move on. Again, this will be in the group chat. Finally, our last person to sneak into the playoffs, Jake, here is your team here. I have you averaging 176 points per week going into the playoffs. Take a second to look. And now, we're going to get ready to move on to my first prediction. We're going to be looking at the matchups of Sam versus Jake for week 1, and then Mike versus Kevin for week 1 as well. So here it is. Here is my prediction for the first round of the playoffs. I predict that Sam, his entire team on average, will score in the ballpark of 382 points and beat Jake, who's going to score 348. Again, these are just the projections that your team's going to have for the total week. For both weeks combined, and these are the total points on your team. How you manage it is on you. And then for the other matchup, I have Kevin beating Mike. Kevin with 373, Mike with 345. Everything comes down to how you manage it. All the points are there. It's on you. Now, what you all been waiting for the league championship matchup. Sam versus Kevin. This one came down to be really, really tight. As you can see, the combined total points was Kevin with 376 against Sam with 363, but I wasn't content with that. I wanted to break it down through the projections of 8 starters on each of your team who are the highest scoring based off my predictions. In week 1, I have Sam scoring 120 and Kevin with 121. Week 2, I have it a draw. 115, which gives us a total of Kevin with 236 to Sam 235. Again, like I keep saying, it's all about how you manage your team, and these do not account for defenses. But according to my analytics, my stats, my projections, the matchups that your players have going into the final 4 weeks of our playoff season, I have Kevin being crowned league champion, and unfortunately Sam, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Sorry buddy, but Kevin, you are my winner. Well league, that completes this week's review and playoff prediction. Good luck to all the playoff teams this year. Also, I'm going to be king of the losers bracket. I will win. I will beat Cam, and it'll just be that much more sweeter. But anyways, cheers, gentlemen. Thanks for another great year of fantasy football. Good luck.